Welcome back as we gather around the life divine on 14 September 2025. We'll rehearse a little bit of the distance that we've already traveled and maybe go a little farther too. Sri Aurobindo, as you know, having studied his biography, read at least part of it, was a master of many languages. And he was very well known for his mastery of Greek and Latin when he was a student at Cambridge. As a starving or a nearly starving student, he won prizes for his scholarship. And he picked up a few European languages along the way as well. So we've seen how deliberately he chooses language. He's putting forward a philosophy in the framework of the life divine, a field in which he'd never worked before, except a little to the side in notations that he made for himself. Nothing that he would have considered to be um, finally serious work. But the life divine, he took seriously. So the idea that we are dealing with a world means that it got here somehow. That world is not one world, but many worlds, or so it seems to us. And it seems to us to be complicit in many stages, compiled one plane upon the other as we learn to distinguish the various elements that drive the universe. So he prefers the term manifestation to creation because if there were a creator outside shaping something that's external to his being, that would convey an idea that is foreign to Sri Aurobindo. For him, reality is one. So to say that it is a manifestation means to go back to the Latin manifestere, that it has become clear, stepped out to the front, is fully in view, or something is in view. When he uses the term emergent, we have the same sense from him because he goes back to the Latin there too, emergere, to rise from or out of water or from some liquid to the surface, to become visible. That is what to emerge means. To educe, the term education comes from that, means to lead out, presumably from within, but to lead from to. So in all of these cases, whether we're talking about manifestation or an emergence, or indeed an education, we are going from an interior reality to a shaped reality. So with manifestation, we have coming into view something that Sri Aurobindo would call a cosmos. Remember, in Greek, chaos and cosmos are differentiated. Chaos is catastrophic. It has no being, no rhyme, no reason. It is a field of utter darkness and irrationality. Some godlike power comes and imposes upon this chaos a shape, a form, a kind of beauty, and it becomes a cosmos. So the idea that the universe is a manifestation of beauty is ancient. It is there in Sanskrit also. We have in Sanskrit as well, vyaktikr, to describe what we call manifestation, to make clear, to make manifest. It is an act, krt. It is an action that somebody takes. What that somebody is, what that something is something beyond the tongue to say. We don't know mentally what that is, but we derive from it. So for Sri Aurobindo's cosmology and psychology, we're going back to the roots of what language can tell us and then going, in a sense, beyond it. For Sri Aurobindo, all of this philosophical and cosmological and psychological investigation is something that occurs within, inside one's own consciousness. That's how you come to know the secret of self, the secret of society, the secret of the cosmos, too. It's only by plunging inside. It is a knowledge by identity. Can you become one with it? If it's part of you, you know it, like you know your own thought, your own emotion, your own hand. So this kind of knowledge is what Sri Aurobindo is in quest to attain and what we want as well. So again, from before the beginning is where we start. There is what he would call an absolute or a non-being, a sat, to distinguish it from anything else. It is beyond approach. It is resistant to definition. It escapes all definition, and yet it defines itself as positive being. Vedanta comes to take it beyond simply that it is a sat and describes it eventually over a couple of thousand years as Sat Chit Ananda, Sat, real being, Chit, true consciousness, and Ananda, unmixed bliss, delight. It is this all at once. Whatever that reality is that is breathed out of the absolute becomes this. We could say more positively, if we don't want to refer to it in an impersonal way, that it is a conscious existent whose nature is delight. Later Vedanta describes it as Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, that which is true, auspicious, beautiful. This is the nature of reality. This is the hidden nature of the cosmos. We, trapped in our limitations, can't see the utter beauty that is everywhere. We could also go back to what we've described before as essence, translating itself into existence, which then assumes the forms and the planes of cosmic and personal being, of becoming, since soul and universe are directly expressed by being, and becoming must in some way serve soul in universe in its process. So, given this recapitulation, we can affirm that Sri Aurobindo is a realist. At the bottom, there is a true being. You can't infinitely divide and get to a zero underneath. That would be a shunya. Some have mistaken Sri Aurobindo as basing himself on just such a concept. No, Sri Aurobindo believes there is a bottom. There is something upon which the universe is founded. We may not be able to get at it with our inquiring mind, but we might be able to get at it with the spiritual consciousness that doesn't study what is divided, but becomes one with that which it identifies with. So he is a realist. He is also a teleologist. That is, he sees a hidden purpose in the universe, a meaning along with that purpose, and both are impenetrable to the little limited human mind. Were we even to become cosmic in consciousness, still that would elude us because it is a power and a truth in supernature beyond nature, but comes spilling out of this infinite existence above, which we have described as Satchit Ananda, an order of worlds which have become manifest and which perhaps through the process become known and at least somewhat tentatively mastered by the aspiring soul. So this manifestation can go down or go up. It is directional or bidirectional, but it is always an expression of conscious power. You might say, to put it more intimately, an extrusion of conscious power, because it remains conscious power as it comes into being. It is, as we've noted, a power that comes out, but it doesn't just sit there stationary. Above, it might be one thing, but here, tangible to us, is a series of worlds which each seems to implicate the other. And one would derive that there has been a power of involution at work, a power by which consciousness embedded itself in denser and denser forms, restricted itself more and more. And that descent does not abrogate its oneness. It remains one, and in fact, all of the involution, not simply the triple world above, but the triple world below, with the linking intermediary of a supramental consciousness, always exist. All those worlds cohere, are held together in a harmony in the supreme oneness of true being. However it might appear to us, that is always present and apprehendable to our experience should we pursue it. So, one of the chief laws that the one has imposed upon itself is to maintain unity within emerging diversity, or put the other way, to maintain diversity in the always present unity, so that each aspect of the power of the divine consciousness remains full. Purnam Araha, Purnam Idam. So this descent from naked oneness into concealed diversity is what we call involution. The ascent, the climbing back, the adventure of consciousness, that is evolution. And what evolution provides the universe with is increasing values of meaning. The world begins to become seen as a great experiment, a great play. We invest ourselves in it. The more we come to know what's going on in it, the meaning begins to unroll itself. And even if we are stupefied and nullified sometimes by our experience of the cosmos, which refuses to tell us what its secret is, yet we strive and we strive ever and more for the meaning of it, the meaning of existence, the purpose of our soul's appearance here. So, what we experience in terms of being squashed and thrown into ignorance, etc., that imperfection is transitional to Sri Aurobindo's perspective. And even that ignorance, even that imperfection that we have, is itself purposeful because it pushes us through its frustrations to pursue a greater reality than we currently possess, to grow, to outgrow our limitations, and to recover as we discover the meaning of the cosmos. We can't do that, though, unless we're willing to transcend, to go beyond, to always exceed and redefine ourselves. And so we have to outgrow the material encasement and live. We have to outgrow our preoccupations with satisfying our desires, gratifying ourselves, and reach into the mental altitudes and begin to discover what might be true, what might be false, how can we measure it, what can we do with our minds to explore body and life and the possibilities of intellectual truth. So everything is leading us towards greater and greater scales of adventure to transcend this, then that, and then the other. So transcendence, in a sense, is our business, but it is difficult, and it is, as long as we're ignorant, attended with suffering. Suffering can be got rid of, and it can be got rid of by rediscovering the spiritual identity, which leads us back to core bliss and delight. So, our manifest universe is progressive here upon Earth. On other planes, which are restricted to themselves, there need be no progress because they may be typal. But if those superior planes want to participate in the cosmic play, and the cosmic play begins from matter, then they have to agree to participate materially, to permit encasement in a material sheath. Otherwise, they don't get to enjoy the flourishing evolution which is possible. So they must agree to progress through embodiment. Embodiment is necessary for vitality, for mentality, for psychic possibility and potentiality to become real, for the supramental to seize the earth and manifest what is divine. So As Sri Aurobindo says, and this is a quote, matter itself must become a means for the full manifestation of the spirit. So again, we've said this before, I think, but we have before us, around us, in us, a manifestation of the timeless eternal in a time eternity. And it contains at least 7 grades of consciousness, the way that Sri Aurobindo has divided it and demonstrated it to us. There is above that triple world of Sat Chit Ananda, which we can say is triune, 3 in 1. None is subordinate, none is boss of the other. The conscious existent, whose nature is delight, is one being, contains all infinity, endless potential. But if it wishes to express itself, another agency comes into being, the supramental, which translates the infinity of Satchit Ananda into cosmic harmony and order. In that radiant world of the everlasting truth that Sri Aurobindo describes in Savitri, that is the supramental. And pouring out of the supramental as it leans more and more towards diversity and the truth in diversity comes the eventual dominance of diversity as a framework of brilliant light called overmind shapes the endless possibilities and says each is true, choosing none over another. But in giving each its freedom, overmind has, in a sense, released the spiritual glue that holds all together from its grasp. And then we get the downward plunge from the radiance of the overmind, seeming to be supramental, into mind, into life, into matter. So these are the 7 worlds, and it is the material inconscience, which is the floor from which we rise from our knockout descent, the sparks that we are, flying into cosmic adventure, agreeing to darkness if that's what's afoot, and we will climb back out of it because we are absolutely fearless and full of delight. Or we were, but now we have to discover our route, R-O-U-T-E, back into that. So the vital and the mental powers emerge in the struggle upwards, and they are insufficient to reach the height of delight, to enforce the truth of oneness. So that farther step must be achieved. We must, in a sense, be recaptured by the supramental because it's calling us to come back to it through the process of evolution. And then the withheld secret is revealed to us to manifest through that the greater powers of existence from above in the material world. Baffling as it seems to the mind's view, that Sri Aurobindo identifies as the purpose of the cosmos. Not simply its revelation, not simply to know what that is above, but to integrate and unify it with the rest of nature. So what will bring harmony to our divided being, where mind and vitality fight with the body as who's going to do what at what hour, with the psychic consciousness emerging from behind and inviting the supramental bird to land on its branches, we will gain an ordered cosmic connection and the true embeddedness within to re-establish the oneness that unifies our own diversity. So that obtains in our personal psychology. Huh? We are multi-personal. We don't have simply one person in us. We have several persons in us. But right now, they don't work well together. We're as much in personal disagreement as we are in political disagreement around nations and world. You know, some part of us is always growling about having been ignored. Another part says, well, I'm the king of things, and so I should have my way. And, well, you see the mess. We are individually, and the world, we have made a picture of our inner being as it stands right now. Well, we can do better, and we will do better. Um, we're held together right now by a sort of a gravitational force, you might say, of an undisclosed central being that's from behind, from above, guiding us to a better destiny. But we have to become honestly and fully a single being of concord within our multiple levels of selfhood, like a solar system with the planets revolving around the sun, but more wedded together than that, more unified than that. If I could read a brief passage, and this is going to be from page 834, if you want to find it in your copy of The Life Divine. We always love to hear Sri Aurobindo's words. So this is going to be the paragraph that's towards the middle of the page. For when we say that the soul on earth evolves successively, the physical, the vital, the mental, the spiritual being, we do not mean that it creates them and that they had no previous existence. On the contrary, what it does is to manifest these principles of its spiritual entity under the conditions imposed by a world of physical nature. This manifestation takes the form of a structure of frontal personality, which is a translation of the inner self into the terms and possibilities of the physical existence. In fact, we must accept the ancient idea that man has within him not only the physical soul or purusha with its appropriate nature, but a vital, a mental, a psychic, a supramental, a supreme spiritual being. And either the whole or the greater presence or force of them is concealed in his subliminal or latent and unformulated in his superconscient parts. He has to bring forward their powers in his active consciousness and to awake to them in its knowledge. But each of these powers of his being is in relation with its own proper plane of existence, and all have their roots there. It is through them that there takes place the subliminal resort of the being to the shaping influences from above, a resort which may become more and more conscious as we develop. So there are aspects of our higher self waiting above, singing a tune to us down here that we will eventually hear and be able to push into the rhythms known and tangible to us. So it will be a concert, you see, of the supraphysical playing in the embodied ambassadors from those areas, but right here in this being, in love with the psychic, enraptured with the suprarational, the supramental, the supreme person. It will be wonderful. There's much to do. We start by realizing the self beyond cosmos and personality, that which draws its essence from the absolute. Without that, we do not have the freedom of the silence of the spirit. We must attain that freedom. With it, with that freedom, we can range through the worlds. You'll remember the Taittiriya Upanishad at its end. We can range through the worlds and unite the several folds of us and cosmos as our own eventually one prerogative with the intricate interweaving required. We can make things whole. We can make things harmonious. We can shape, we can manifest. In a sense, we can create our own beauty. We can become here Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Why not? Why not engage? The artists, the philosophers, the mystics are doing this even now. From inside to outside, from above to below, all around, a perfect sphere. Parmenides would be happy at this picture of oneness. We might even move Shankara to shrug and accept it, at least provisionally. So, it's been a short evening. I know you're reveling in delight. But there is still to come, Savitri. So this is a nice passage. We can continue from here if we want. This is on page 49, the Book of Beginnings, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge, after the break. But all is screened, subliminal, mystical. It needs the intuitive heart, the inward turn. It needs the power of a spiritual gaze. Else to our waking mind's small moment look, a goalless voyage seems our dubious course. Some chance has settled or hazarded some will, or a necessity without aim or cause, unwillingly compelled to emerge and be. In this dense field, where nothing is plain or sure, our very being seems to us questionable, our life a vague experiment, the soul a flickering light in a strange, ignorant world, the earth a brute mechanic accident, a net of death in which by chance we live. All we have learned appears a doubtful guess, the achievement done, a passage or a phase whose farther end is hidden from our sight, a chance happening or a fortuitous fate. Out of the unknown, we move to the unknown. Ever surround our brief existence here gray shadows of unanswered questionings. The darkened conscience, signless mysteries stand up unsolved behind fate's starting line. An aspiration in the night's profound, seed of a perishing body and half-lit mind, uplifts its lonely tongue of conscious fire towards an undying light forever lost. Only it hears, sole echo of its call, the dim reply in man's unknowing heart, and meets, not understanding why it came, or for what reason is the suffering here, God's sanction to the paradox of life and the riddle of the immortal's birth and time. Along a path of eons serpentine, in the coiled blackness of her nescient course, the earth goddess toils across the sands of time. A being is in her whom she hopes to know. A word speaks to her heart she cannot hear. A fate compels whose form she cannot see. In her unconscious orbit through the void, out of her mindless depths she strives to rise, a perilous life her gain, a struggling joy, a thought that can conceive but hardly knows, arises slowly in her and creates the idea, the speech that labels more than it lights. A trembling gladness that is less than bliss invades from all this beauty that must die. Alarmed by the sorrow dragging at her feet, and conscious of the high things not yet won, ever she nurses in her sleepless breast an inward urge that takes from her rest and peace. Ignorant and weary and invincible, she seeks through the soul's war and quivering pain the pure perfection her marred nature needs, a breath of Godhead on her stone and mire. A faith she craves that can survive defeat, the sweetness of a love that knows not death, the radiance of a truth forever sure. A light grows in her, she assumes a voice. Her state she learns to read, and the act she has done. But the one needed truth eludes her grasp, herself, in all of which she is the sign. An inarticulate whisper drives her steps, of which she feels the force but not the sense. A few rare intimations come as guides, immense divining flashes cleave her brain, and sometimes in her hours of dream and muse, the truth that she has missed looks out on her, as if far off, and yet within her soul. A change comes near that flees from her surmise, and ever postponed, compels attempt and hope, yet seems too great for mortal hope to dare. A vision meets her of supernal powers that draw her as if mighty kinsmen lost, approaching with a strange, great, luminous gaze. Then is she moved to all that she is not, and stretches arms to what was never hers. Outstretching arms to the unconscious void, passionate, she prays to invisible forms of gods, soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time what most she needs, what most exceeds her scope, a mind unvisited by illusions gleams, a will expressive of soul's deity, a strength not forced to stumble by its speed, a joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. Well, we can stop there. I'd rather there than earlier. Hmm. Be bright, beautiful people, you wonderful souls, full of promise, full of power, full of beauty. Manifest. Namaste. Jai Ma. Hmm.